Hello guys, I am back and we're continuing with our conversation about cancer. And I was realizing I kind of reviewed the last video that I did, and I realized that I didn't quite tell you enough concerning the sugar consumption. I mentioned that the sweet sugars from glucose, which are found in the sweeter fruits or found in fruits in general, added to the sugar that is produced by carbohydrates, all the items or the foods, all the foods or the items that fit within the white, yellow, orange spectrum, those particular foods, excuse me, wow, okay. I feel a little like Wendy Williams having little bubbles episodes on the show. Anyway, the carbohydrates, they turn to sugar in the body. So when you add that to the fruit sugar, the glucose, and then the regular white sugar that is hidden in all the other prepackaged foods, and I neglected to mention bagged foods as well. Anything that's prepackaged that you buy in a store has some degree of sugar in it, as well as a lot of sodium. But we're not talking about the sodium just yet. So if you add together the sugar that's in the prepackaged foods that's hidden, combined with the carbohydrates from the starchy foods, plus the fruit sugar, that's a lot of sugar coming into your system. But then on top of that, the other thing I didn't tell you about is the fact that the candida yeast, or the bad bugs, thrive on sugar. They eat sugar. They have a freaking party when you eat a lot of sugar. And they start multiplying probably faster than rabbits. And before you know it, you end up with an infestation of candida yeast throughout your body. When I was a kid, as I think I mentioned in the other video, I was told that I had swimmer's ear or tinnitus. That's one form of yeast manifestation in the body. Another form, as I think I mentioned in the previous video, is yeast infections that women are prone to get, vaginal yeast infections that they're prone to get. That's another manifestation, and that's another sign. It's so funny because sometimes people go through life and they're like, I wish God would give me a sign. Well, sometimes we get signs and we just don't recognize them because we're ignorant. We just don't know any better, or we just don't know what's going on. So sign number one for me was the tinnitus. And like I said, it wasn't until years later that I figured this out. And sign number two was the yeast infections. Sign number three can also be things like if you have dandruff. If you have a dandruff problem, that's a sign of too much sugar in your body. And what happens is your body, those yeast start to grow out of control. You start to develop fungus issues because yeast is a form of fungus. So basically you've got fungus that are sprouting literally inside your body. They're like growing like crazy. And on top of that, it starts to now, it's so excessive. You're taking in so much sugar that it's not enough that they're growing inside your body. Now, the inside is starting to reflect on the outside. And remember what I said about, well, I may not have said this. I may have said this on one of the videos that got cut due to the sound problems. Okay, so I'll come back to that thought. When you are dealing with an internal problem, that problem can be there manifesting for a long time, before it starts to hit you, in the layers coming up towards the external. You've got all these tissue layers, muscle and sinew and, organs and systems. There's a lot of tissue there. And the pain from whatever is happening on the internal with these immune problems that are developing may not hit you right away. It could be years before some of this starts to really strike home and start causing problems that you can feel, problems that you are starting to pay attention to. So this is why you have to start looking for the signs early. And so I would say to you parents to be on the lookout for these things. If your child has swimmer's ear or tendonitis, that's like one of the first steps down the line into a major problem with candida yeast. And that's going to lead, that's another condition that leads you into a cancer or a diabetic condition. So if you have dandruff, that's another one. The dandruff starts out in little small flakes that you might see as they show on the nice little dandruff commercials. They show these little flakes on the guy's jacket. It starts out that way with these little dots. But as you progressively get older, if the condition is not abated and put in check, those flakes begin to get bigger and bigger, and they turn into what I called, I had these little goofy names when my son was little, and I would make up stuff for him, different words for him, sometimes just to play with him. So these bigger flakes, I call them crusties. So these flakes will start getting bigger, and it'll be like huge chunks of scalp coming out of your head before you know what's happening. And I am speaking also from experience because I did go through that, but I got it under control. So, and I've seen it in other people and I couldn't understand it. I saw it in other people before it started manifesting in me. But you get these big, huge crustacean looking flakes. Crustacean looking because they look like, I don't know, little crabs or warriors, or they're just big chunks. And it's disgusting to see, and it's disgusting to feel. It feels like big scabs in your head. So when that starts to occur, you are definitely on track for diabetes if you don't already have it, and for cancer. You are on track if you have any of those problems happening. There's another thing too, see, because the fungus manifests in several different ways. Now, I don't know if any of you guys ever heard of thrush. I believe that's the name that my father used to call it. And he said that it was a rash on what he referred to as the taint. And I apologize for anybody that offends. I'm not going to go into detail on what the taint is, because if you don't know what that is, it's not something I'm going to explain. You may have to look that one up, because I'm trying to keep this clean, okay? But my father claimed that you could get a rash or so. That's what he called it, a rash, in that zone. But anything like that, if you're getting boils, if you get boils on your skin anywhere, these big, large, huge lesions that come up, I don't know of another name for them other than boils. That's what I've called them for years. But if you get anything like that in your face, anywhere on your body, you can even get it in the private area. If you get anything like that happening, that's all the result of too much sugar in your system. You can also end up getting like a fungus that's growing on your skin. And what I mean by that is in areas where there's a lot of heat and moisture, Okay, so I'm going to say for everybody, generally speaking, this can happen in the private zone. Okay, it can happen on your inner thighs. If you've noticed that the color of your skin has turned a little darker in those zones, you have a fungus. It can happen, you know, in the crease between the legs. It can happen if you've got a belly. It can happen right up under the belly. You start getting very itchy. Ladies that have large breasts, it can happen under the breasts. Trying to think of anywhere. It can happen in maybe even in the armpits. Any area of your body where moisture and heat can kind of get together and party a little bit, you know, where there's, I say party a little bit, but you know, where there's moisture and a lot of heat, where there's not enough air circulation. Any area like that in your body, it can even happen. That's what causes athlete's foot to also. Athlete's foot fungus. All of those things are the result of too much sugar. And the fungus inside starts to manifest outside. So if you're having any kind of problem like that going on, you're definitely on that path. So a few of those issues had cropped up for me, as I mentioned earlier, and I started noticing, you know, and especially if you see like changes in your skin tone, you know, the complexion. Like I've seen people. This is scary for me, honestly. I've been downtown in Fort Lauderdale near that bus terminal in that McDonald's, and I've seen people come in there, particularly older people and also particularly heavy people, come in, and they come in wearing shorts, and I'm looking at their legs, and from, I'd say, maybe about $1 length from the kneecap going downward, from that point going towards the ankles. So basically your shin area and around the lower end of your calves. If you see your skin color changing in that zone, that's a sign of diabetes. And I've seen these people, older people and heavier people, coming in with that condition happening in their legs. And I look at them and immediately I know they're diabetic. And because it's really bad. Like if you see a slight skin coloration change, you should be concerned. But we're talking really serious change there. We're talking, okay, if I'm looking at somebody that's Caucasian, the color is very, very red, almost like an angry purple color sometimes. That's a very severe case. Like they're at the point where they could lose their legs. And I watch them come in. When I used to sit in that area and wait for, you know, my son or wait for a bus, I would see these people come in, and I'm looking at this on their body, and I'm like, whoa, like it was so bad. And they come in and they're eating McDonald's food. And I'm like, wow, wow, wow. And I'm thinking to myself, the condition that I'm looking at on them is so bad. I'm like, you've got to know. And then I look at their hair or their ears, and there's all this flaking. You even see it. You've seen some people where they've got a bunch of big flakes around their ears and stuff, especially older people, and hanging around in the sides of their hair. And all of that is a sign of massive candida overgrowth. And that is a sign of diabetes and or cancer. So if you're seeing any of those things going on, you need to make some major changes with your diet. Because if you don't make those changes, you're going to end up with those diseases. And I feel like maybe it seems harsh of me. I understand that a lot of us have been ignorant about a lot of these things. But I feel like when when you've been told and you don't at least make the effort consciously to make those changes, then I don't really have a lot of pity if you end up getting sick. I know it's a battle because I'm battling with it every day myself. I'm battling to be consistent in my efforts to eat healthier. And I really believe that God honors that effort. I believe that, and I'm checking my phone here because I didn't even start my little timer, and I know I don't want to go too far over. But I believe that, I believe that God honors effort. When you make the effort to try, because faith is, like I had to tell somebody on Medium, I wrote an article and this guy greatly misunderstood what I was saying. And he gave me a response. And he thought that I was saying that faith, he thought I was nullifying faith and grace, because he mentioned to me that salvation is faith-based, and he thought I was telling people that action was required in order to be saved. And I was like, no, we're talking about two totally different things. What I was talking about was the fact that faith requires action. It's a living thing. Faith is a living thing. It's energy. And it requires you to do something. It's not, we've been told for years in church that you pray and you wait on the Lord, but even waiting on the Lord is an action. Waiting, it's a verb, it's an action, but it doesn't mean that you're standing still. It means that you are continuing to move forward towards that resolution to the prayer or whatever it was that you requested. You're moving towards it as if it's already there, it's already provided for you, and that still is faith, and it's still action, and it's still taking steps, and it's still making effort. And that's what I was talking about. And I was saying that basically, when the problem with us in this country, I'm in the US, I don't know who may be watching me from around the world or anywhere else, but in this country, we have gotten far too complacent. We have gotten, what's the word I mentioned to my mother earlier today? Too passive. We've become too passive. And when you become passive and complacent, you don't fight for anything. You don't make any effort. And I remember several years back where a bunch of parents started making all this noise about, Little League and all these different sports, in schools and stuff like that for kids. Oh, everybody had to be a winner and everybody had to get a trophy. No, because if you give them a trophy and they didn't fight the fight it took to win that battle or win that game, then you're rewarding them for doing little or nothing. You're rewarding them for not making enough effort. And even though they may be up against a team that is far more athletic, it still requires a lot more effort. And that effort will come in the form of thinking, reading, studying, thinking, and coming up with a outside the box sort of plan of attack that would send your opponents spinning and squirming and running away, because it's not the norm. It's not, you play your game, you don't play their game. So I'm saying all that to say that we've been too complacent and too passive concerning the faith and the trust that we have put into these corporations that are providing medical services, some of them, the pharmaceutical, the whole, corporations that are producing these prepackaged food products. We've put way too much faith and trust in these entities, and especially these large corporations. And I'm so glad to see, as I was telling my mother today, that the return of people pushing towards more independent living, off the grid living, where you grow your own food, and you manage your own household, your own life. You're more responsible. When we're too complacent and when we're too passive, we're not responsible. We allow things to just happen, and we don't take any responsibility for the fact that something happened. And that's what's been going on. People are busy running to doctors and popping pills and doing these surgeries and stuff, and they don't have any understanding that that's going to cause them more pain. You have pain right now happening in your body, but instead of addressing the real issues and trying to go back and find out what really brought this pain into your life and into the arena of your body, the quick fix, let's run to the doctor, let's pop some pills, and now let's smoke some weed, and it's doing nothing but dulling our senses more and making us more passive and making us more complacent, so that basically the government and all these big entities can roll right over us and control everything that we do and everything that we spend our money on. The same thing with the media and the entertainment. The millennials are so caught up in this media stuff and this whole narcissistic lifestyle of constantly photographing themselves for, I don't know what reason, because it's not like everybody's that interesting that we want to constantly see pictures of them. But yeah, there's a whole lot of narcissism going on and a whole lot of lazy, passive attitudes. And this is why people are sick in this country.